Shabbat Shalom. Tonight, Caroline is having an 80s themed party. And the 80s were a very different time. In Caroline, they were instrumental in your parents' lives and the music they love and their outlook. And looking at our world now, looking at your world and the world of your generation, it is hard for us who grew up in different eras to understand all the subtleties. And it's bewildering. We thought we knew what it meant to be a teenager now. But on another level, it's not so different. We're all there seeking the same things as ever: acceptance and love and self-understanding and connection and fun and rest. And it's the same in Judaism. Last night we had a musical service and we sang and we danced. And not so long ago, synagogues of our movement did not have instruments on Shabbat because the temple was destroyed. And the Jewish people were exiled for 2 millennia, and the Jews were in mourning. So there should be no music on Shabbat. We live in a different time. There is a Jewish state. We're more or less thriving here in America. And it is time to fill our synagogues with music and joy and song. The synagogue should capture the mood of our people and the needs of our generation. So the 80s have passed, even as the music and clothes are somewhat back, I'm told. But we may be sad about it and try and recreate it at the end of all of our work conferences and we have a party. We can still try and preserve some of the fun of what it represented. And Judaism changes all the time. When I was growing up in Jerusalem, I never saw women wear a kippah, a yarmulke. When I first saw them, it was very unusual. But with time, I got used to it. And now my daughter wears one at our Shabbat table proudly. And even in your parsha, you spoke about Shemitah, the land getting a rest. Well, our tradition also believes our finances should get a rest. And every year, every 7 years, all debts were canceled per the Torah. But then they found that people stopped lending to each other if they knew all the debts were going to be canceled. And so they had to find another way of creating that justice and that equity. So there's a beautiful process going on all the time of time moving forward. But we try and hold on to what matters to us in our hearts and our minds and our souls. And the world changes, and at first it's bewildering. But then we realize that in many ways, it is as it always was. So in 2 weeks' time, we have our holiday of Shavuot, which is about the receiving of a Torah. And there's a beautiful teaching by Rabbi Yitzchak Berdichev, and he says there were 2 Torahs that were received on Mount Sinai. And one was a Torah that you read from this morning, the written Torah. But then there was also another Torah, which was the Torah of being there, of the experience of being there, as we'll read in a few weeks. The mountain was shaking and the sound of the shofar blaring and the people heard the divine voice. And you had to be there. And if you weren't there, you could still hear about it from somebody who was. You can read about it. You have to keep it alive. And the written Torah, it's always there. We can always go back and read it. But the Torah of the experience, every one of us has to seek out. So every generation, Judaism and the whole world changes. Yet we still can hold on to the truth. So what it means to be a good person, to live with joy and spirit, and to adapt to the times that we live in. And the bat mitzvah is such a moment. We think about our own b'nai mitzvah and surrounded by our loved ones. We think about times passing and generations passing. And we realize how much the world has changed. And yet each one of us can still go back to those moments that define us and define the values that we care most about, the mountains that we wish to place at the center of our being. Caroline, this world is your world and your peers' world. We hope that you bring some of we also cherished and pray that all together we come closer to peace, to fulfillment, to justice for all. Shabbat Shalom.